To thank Anthony Pompliano from Morgan Creek Digital Assets for joining Chepicap and other media and cryptocurrency enthusiasts and local actors from the space in the House of Nakamoto in the center of Amsterdam. Hi,
Absolutely.
Anthony.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, first question I have for you, it's one that you've heard before, I guess. Are you a Bitcoin bull or bear for 2019?
I'm always a Bitcoin bull in the long term. I think that we probably haven't seen the bottom of the bear market, and we're likely to go sideways for much of 2019. So I kind of cautiously optimistic, right? I guess is how I would put myself. And over the long term, I believe more today than I've ever believed.
But let's say that you wouldn't be surprised if Bitcoin closed the year in a similar price range to where it started?
Yeah, I think that anywhere between that $2,000 to $4,000 price, kind of trading it back and forth in there makes a lot of sense. And again, I don't know, maybe I'm 50% confident that it'll close under $5,000 price point by the end of the year.
With all the building going on in the space right now, let's fast forward to 2030. 20 years after Nakamoto's white paper, how will things be going then for Bitcoin and crypto in the general sense?
Every day that passes, I think, is a day closer to Bitcoin becoming a stronger currency in the world. And I use this visual where if you rank all of the currencies in the world, you start with the strongest at the top and the weakest at the bottom, right? US dollar, euro, et cetera, at the top. Bitcoin wasn't on that list 11 years ago. Then it was at the very bottom of the list. Then it was second to the bottom. Then the third to the bottom, then the fourth to the bottom, right? And it's slowly walking itself up that list. And I think the big question is, how high can it go on the list? Does it top out at 100, at the top 50, top 10? Could it be number one, right? I tend to have a higher probability that it could become the global reserve currency than most. And really my position there is not so much just my belief in Bitcoin and the benefits it brings and the technology, but it's also in the continuation of the legacy financial system to keep screwing up. Right, so BBVA, the Spanish bank, recently froze a bunch of Chinese citizens' bank accounts in Spain. JP announces a stablecoin, and within 48 hours, people can't access their online banking, right? Wells Fargo the other day, for almost 48 hours, people couldn't withdraw money, and then when they could, they were limited to certain small amounts, right? All of these things are in the developed world doing a benefit to Bitcoin, right? It's actually driving awareness. It's driving some adoption. And so if that's happening in the developed world, imagine what's happening in the developing world, right? And so as long as the legacy system continues to mess up and kind of, present an opportunity for something better to take hold, I think that works in Bitcoin's favor.
What would you say about the continuously increasing all-time high Bitcoin purchase numbers that we're getting now from South America? Countries like Venezuela, but not only Venezuela, also Colombia, Peru, and so on. They keep on breaking their Bitcoin purchase all-time highs. Do you think that is where the next wave of adoption is going to come from developing countries?
Bitcoin is better money, and I think the market is showing that in areas where the legacy fiat currency is failing, right? People are electing to move their money and their wealth out of that currency and move it into Bitcoin. There will be plenty of people who argue, all the different data points, et cetera, but it's very hard to argue against the trend, right? And so what magnitude is it happening can be debated, but the trend is definitely that people are opting out of that legacy system and opting into this new digital decentralized system. And anytime you get an open network that kind of has this escape velocity, it's damn near impossible to stop, right? So I think that Bitcoin's got a shot to continue to grow.
Taking a look at your cult status or the growth of your brand and the credibility around it, you're kind of juggling a complex position while fighting the order and remaining positive about the space in a moment where many people are turning into negativity. What is the key for this growth of your own brand, besides, of course, putting all the hours, all the hard work into it?
I think I have a unnatural comfort being uncomfortable. and I am perfectly fine being wrong in public, right? So whereas a lot of people allow their emotions to dictate their decision making and their communication, I have a thesis. I've done the work to get there and understand why I believe that, what the risks to that are, what the benefits are, etc. And I have seen no reason to change that thesis, right? Price to me is just a distraction on the way up and on the way down, right? The underlying fundamentals of the asset and the industry are much more important. And not only have they not declined, they've actually improved, right? So hence my even more bullishness today than at any other time, right? And what I remind most investors is the key to investing is to do something different than everybody else and be right. Right? If you do what everyone else is doing, then you're just gonna get what everybody else gets. If you do something different and you're wrong, then you're an idiot, right? And everyone else was right. But if you do something different and you're right, that's where you can make a lot of money. And so right now in a bear market, I think Bitcoin's probably at that point where a lot of people don't believe in it, right? And so the people who do and who act accordingly, I think will have an advantage over a long period of time.
Could you mention a couple of pioneers that you think are doing a lot for the space right now? And would you care to mention at least one that is not so well known or racing on one that is more mainstream or established?
Yeah, so there's a whole bunch. I mean, look, Satoshi Nakamoto obviously is kind of the most important person or group by far. I think many of the names that people know. Right, everyone from the Jeff Garziks to the Roger Veres to everyone else that was in those early days, Hal Finney, etc. All of those people are incredibly important, and whether you agree with them today or not on the positions, they got us here. Right, and so I think that gets forgotten a lot of times. And then the other thing is, I think that there are a number of people that are doing really important work to gain institutional adoption. One of them I'll call out is the team at Bitwise. So Hunter Horsley, Teddy, and the team, they are doing the work to go educate institutions. They're doing the work to get Bitcoin ETF approved. They're just kind of got their hands on a lot of different things, and I think doing it the right way. So much so that we invested, right? But I think that's an example of a group that, some people have kind of heard of Bitwise before, but they don't really understand how much work is going into it, how important that work is. And we're likely to see in the next kind of 3 to 4 years, a lot of that work pay off, kind of over time.
What are your thoughts about the latest developments in Binance behind Changpeng Zhao, CZ's lead?
Yeah, look, CZ, I've gotten to know him, over some time now. I'm incredibly impressed by him. He is able to build this company in less than 18 months into 400 employees. I think they did like $450 million in profit last year, and the guy is just an executor. Right? He has an idea and he executes on it. There's plenty of people who think they have nefarious strategies, that they're, kind of ducking regulation, doing all these different things. As I've gotten to know him, I truly believe that people would misunderstand him and what they're doing. He is trying to follow the rules in the countries in which he operates. And then there's times where he thinks the rules are wrong, right? And he speaks up about that and wants to work with regulators to fix that. And so, look, Binance is, from a financial standpoint, an incredible company. He's the leader, and I think that regardless of what you think of him, you can't take that away from him.
The last question is regarding the latest news that we've been hearing this week. First of them came from Morgan Creek digital assets, when you secured a venture fund with public pensions worth $40 million, as you tweeted. But we also got news about the launch of a stable coin by JP Morgan Chase. What difference do you see between both types of institutional presence or approach to cryptocurrency space?
Yeah, so when we talk about institutional investors, I don't include the banks, right? I talk about family offices, or not even family offices, really it's endowments, pensions, foundations, and sovereign wealth funds. These are, institutions or organizations that have permanent capital. They're very long-term thinkers. They've proven over time to have some of the best returns, as a kind of class of institutions. And I think they're looking to invest, right? They're not going to build tools internally, et cetera. They allocate capital. The banks are taking the opposite approach. They're all trying to build things. And the most important principle that the banks are missing right now is they are trying to take a centralized approach to a decentralized world. It's not going to work, right? And when I say it's not going to work, it doesn't mean that they won't find some short-term early success in very nuanced cases. It means that over a long period of time, that is the losing strategy. Right. And so if I was them, I would be buying up as much talent as I could. I would be telling my clients to buy some of these assets. I would start adopting some of the assets myself on my balance sheet. I would start trying to own the narrative of we are very friendly to the decentralized world, and trying to figure out what's the business model in that world, right? How can I, as a regulated legacy financial institution, participate in, let's say, a Bitcoin world, right? What can I do to make money and continue to drive value for my shareholders rather than say, Bitcoin, it's a bunch, that's not really real. We're going to create our own. And now that it's centralized and regulated, this is better than Bitcoin. Probably not the right strategy.
Well, thank you so much again for taking the time to answer us. And please like and subscribe.